Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to continue as we move forward to the last part of today's conference. And next up is someone who already impressed us this morning earlier at the ECOT ceremony. And since his birthday, he is allowed to give 2 presentations today. Yeah. We already sung, but only today. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's make it a tradition. Yeah. So I already introduced Torsten this morning, but I will do it again. Torsten works for the City of Hamburg and at the Ministry of Environment, Climate, Energy and Agriculture, where he's responsible for nature conservation and green planning. And in this presentation, he will, the title is Strategies for Tree Conservation. Torsten.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here again now and to have the opportunity to give this presentation because the strategies for tree conservation are really important for us in Hamburg. We have also about 20 years in program about the elms in Hamburg, and my career started with the horse chestnut monitoring and the horse chestnut bleeding cancer in the university. And our chancellor, state chancellor, said in the morning, Hamburg a metropolis in the park and the water. Yes, that is what people often see. So we have 30% about a tree canopy in Hamburg. And the protection of old trees, you remember, is very highlighted in Hamburg. It's in the new cohabitation agreement, as well as in the protection preservation of street trees in the climate adaptation strategy. But disease do not care about political agreements and often very difficult to control once an epidemic outbreak occurs. What we need in cities are large, major trees. We learned from Cecil today again. They provide essential ecosystem services, act as natural air conditioners in the city, and are crucial for biodiversity and habitat connectivity. What you see here a major horse chestnut tree from 1880, about crown diameters from 20 meters. And here, the small trees are planted 15 years ago in the past. So, please remember this part from the Rathenaustraße and the ecosystem services about these trees. If one of them are fallen, the University of Dresden Professor Roloff calculated you need 400 new trees to be planted to get back the ecosystem services about one of these old trees. Scientists called for greater appreciation of large establishment trees, and I agree with this opinion, and we must do everything we can do for all trees, and this is the reason why we have the programs in Hamburg about tree conservations with disease. So here we can see a part in Hamburg, in the middle of Hamburg. Again, it is directly in the center, and you saw a lot of old trees. This here is the Rathenaustraße with a lot of old trees. Most of them are horse chestnut trees, and how important these trees are. And we can see the line here, but also the private trees in these squares. So 1830, this place was created in Hamburg after everything burned down. So it was like in London for the squares. So, and 1870, a lot of trees are planted, and we also have a lot of them today there. The yellow points are the elms. So, and of course, maybe a lot of you know what happened to the elms in the past, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80 years. So, I think it's also a reason why Malmö have not more so much trees, and they use also the diversity strategy because the DOD, Dutch elm disease, kills a lot of trees. So this, what we see, are our horse chestnut trees, the red points. They are planting between 1815 and 2014. So since 2014, we have hardly planted any more horse chestnut tree. More on that later. Oaks, the purple points, with a planting year between 1760 and 2024, also on green spaces, not only street trees. These trees are of great importance for the climate adaptation in this area of Hamburg. So you will notice that large proportion of our important of all trees on chestnuts or oaks. So our strategic approach is simple but effective. Survey, monitoring, hygiene measures, prevention, new planting. I will explain it using the example of the Dutch elm disease DED. Survey, all elms are documented and continuously updated in the new tree register. Monitoring, every year the elm population is monitoring and infested trees and outbreak sites are identified. Hygiene measured, infested trees are completely removed and prevently inoculated to increase their resistance. Depending on the infection risk, species varieties are selected and planting method is adapted. We plant a lot of hybrid elm trees. So the basic approach can be applied to other tree disease. We did it also to the horse chestnut bleeding cancer, and there we are at the moment. We have these steps we have done, and now we are here. So we want to become here, also for the horse chestnut tree, like the elms. Shortly to the Dutch elm disease, you see, I think most of you know it. 1920, the disease was first described in the Netherlands. That's the reason because of Dutch elm disease. So, widespread distribution occurs through international timber trade. By 1960, the peak of the first pandemic wave, about 70% of the British elms survived. I know from literature. The pathogen of the second wave, a highly aggressive strain, emerges, and by the mid-80s, approximately 20 million elms had died in Great Britain. Maybe the same counts in Europe, and because of the timber trade, 77 million elms died in the United States. We can hear on the picture of Eustoma ulmi, of Eustoma novo ulmi, is widely spread until now and a problem for the elms. Also in Hamburg, we have this program, it works pretty well. But in the last year, we lost 130 trees. So typical symptoms of Dutch elm disease are wilting and yellowing leaves on individual branches, often followed by rapid dieback of entire crown selection. Brown discoloration in the wood vascular tissue is also characteristic. So on this picture, we saw old investigation, new investigation, and anticipated infestation from infected neighboring trees. These trees are all lost, so you have no chance. So at the moment, direct behind of the ministry, we have to watch where 60 years old elms died. So yeah, it happened in Hamburg again, or all the time a little bit, because we have our program. We have started with 600 elms in 2002 in Hamburg, and now we have 4,200 elms of various species and varieties in Hamburg. Some which are over 100 years, and with vacation, you can see it here, it is possible that we can also save these trees. The goal set in 2002 with 600 elms recorded was increase the population to 5,000 elms by 2030. Therefore, there's still much to do. So we have 5 years for 800 elms. So to establish and maintain a healthy elm population, not only the choice of variety, but also site selection, tree care, tree hygiene, close monitoring, and several other factors play an equal and important role. On the left side, you can see the vacation every 10 centimeters. So, every 10 centimeters you can see the elm vacation in the outer annual ring. An integrated management approach is required to a protection and preservation for elms. Without a vacationing strategy and remediation measures, it's really important. So suspectable elm species are highly endangered. Tree hygiene measures such as removal of fresh dead wood and timely felling are essential. Replanting is carried out resistant varieties. So that's about the elms in Hamburg. We come now to the horse chestnut tree. Not only children love horse chestnut trees. I don't know how it is in your cities. In Hamburg, the most of people love the horse chestnut tree from the citizens. It's a really beautiful tree, and the people in Hamburg, the heart, it's for them. We have about 8,000 horse chestnut trees recorded in the tree register. 98% of the population are either red or white flowering varieties. Aesculus hippocastanum, Baumani, Aesculus carnea, and Brioti. Aesculus hippocastanum is the most common species, accounting almost 75%. The horse chestnut population in Hamburg is characterized in particular by its high number of old trees. 35% have been at their location for 80 years and more. So on this map you can see the first detection in Belgium near the Dutch border. This time not in the Dutch border, in Dutch. So the first detection of Pseudomonas syringae-padova aesculi occurred a site in Belgium. The arrow points to a country where a scientific record was made. Here, for example, 2007 in Germany. Through genome sequencing, we know that all the detections in Europe can be tracked back to the bacterium first identified in Belgium. The bacteria is waterborne, rain, humidity, and can be transported at high altitudes. Over the past 20 years, the bacteria has become regionally established in Europe and is causing several damage on horse chestnut trees. Also, you see in the south, on this map, the natural displaced native populations in the Balkan region. So possible entry points from Pseudomonas syringae bacteria into the host, natural entry points, biotic entry points like insects, animals, abiotic entry points, and also anthropogenic causes. So, and if you see this picture, the bacteria lives on the leaf. The bacteria lives as epiphyte on bark on the leaves, and after penetrating the tree, the bacteria becomes a pathogen. So the bacterium on the picture adheres to the stomata and finds its way into the tree where it becomes a pathogen. So typical symptoms are rust-colored localized lesions in the bark. If you remove the bark, like here for example, you will see a mosaic-like mottled coloration in the phloem. And in this area, the bacteria are active. Here you can see it. So, typical symptoms are longitudinal cracks on the trunk. Here is everything dead. Dieback of branches or entire sections in the crown. Exudations lessened. So, bright leaf discoloration in the terminal area is a really bad sign. 1 year later, the tree looks like this. The transition from bacterial infections of the horse chestnut to secondary infections by wood decaying fungi can occur within a few years. In Germany, we call it from this point complex disease of the horse chestnut. A doctoral student at the University of Hamburg has found out that the growth of the fungi is accelerated by the bacteria. So, not so good for the horse chestnut trees because they can, every one of you knows those views. A lot of, often in the winter we see horse chestnut trees in Hamburg like this. A lot of mushrooms on the living trees. Sometimes there can be a real explosion of fungal growth on these trees when external conditions favor fungal development. The fungi often produce fruiting bodies after fruit events, frost events. This is also important if you have the problem in your city after frost events to look for the tree. If you see the signs, the tree is already at high risk for breaking and must be felled very quick. For example, the violet crust fungus is often found in dead wood. And that was what I said. For until 2012 and 13, we don't know it in Germany that 3-4 different species of mushrooms attack a living tree, and it happened very quick. So, and it's also a problem from the old trees. If you can see it from the ground for the tree inspection, the fungi attacks from outside. We know this type of rot, for example, from the Massaria disease in the plane trees. This significantly increases the risk of public safety, especially in large branches of old trees, if the infestation goes undetected. So this is the Rathenaustraße again, I told in the beginning, and this tree was felled in 2018. And this is the problem with the rock, and also you can't see it from the inside of this in the crown, only help. Yeah, the felling is then unfortunately unavailable. The material must be subjected to hot composting or alternatively semi-threatened. In Hamburg we transport the material to the large waste incineration plants. The branch should not be shredded near other horse chestnut trees. Alternatively, the infestation pressure can be reduced by small measures such as shredding with cover. To study the spread dynamics, we performed a kernel density analysis in the geoinformation systems with the data from the tree register. The annual new infections are added, and the trees that have been felled are removed. This way, the model reflects the status of a given year. You see, here 2007 until 2009, because they don't happen so much. In 2010, we observed isolated diseased trees distributed throughout the entire city area. If the number of trees in close proximity to each other increase, the coloration appears reddish. 2011, 2012, this year something changed. Also, the bacterial disease has been present in the city for 5 years. There were no secondary infections with wood decaying fungi. Since 2013, we've lost an average of 130 trees per year due to the complex disease. After felling, there's a short-term easing of the situation. We only fell horse chestnut trees if they are dead or pose a risk because of their structural stability can no longer be guaranteed. 2015, 2016, you see we have here new hotspots in the south of Hamburg. 2017, the felling session in the winter of 2017 was the worst so far. This year we lost 350 horse chestnut trees. During the hot summers from 2018 to 20, the trees were further severely weakened by prolonged dry periods and a lower near surface groundwater level. The incidence of infections increased. 2019, 2020, 21, 22. The loss of many old red flowering horse chestnut trees in the Villen district of Bergedorf, here in the southeast of Hamburg, is currently practically dramatic. So my colleague Leo Dorn is the tree inspector of this district, and he must see the trees dying. So in the past 2 years, the number of new infections has decreased, and the data of 24 is still being evaluated. But you can see we have it everywhere in our city. So what we have learned, once infections start on the street, the spread is very dynamic. Hygiene measures can slow down the infection process, and there are always healthy trees standing next to diseased ones. There will be survivors. It's really important, don't fail so quick. Also, we have learned the damage dynamics in Asclepias chalea is more pronounced than in Asclepias hippocastanum. The species is a crucial factor in the epidemic course of the bacterial disease. Age is also an important factor, and the Hamburg hotspots are characterized by a large number of young red-flowering horse chestnuts. The intensity of investigation remains highly dynamic on the average of 130 trees, I told you. Yeah, adjustment of controlled intervals, so it is possible to look for the trees in summer, and if they get ill, also in the winter for fungi. So for the personal, it's much more pressure. So documentation in the tree register makes the epidemic course transparent, and I can create maps like this. Now we have a new disease in Hamburg, and this is a disease which we never want to have in Hamburg, because we have 42,000 pendicular oaks, Quercus, and in the streets, alone in the streets, and 88,000 are recorded in the public green space tree register. And now we have a bacteria for oaks in Hamburg. Brinaria goodwini is the main pathogen, other bacteria are involved. A large number of oak species are affected, and trees of all ages classes can become diseased. So we can also here on the picture see dying crowns and branches often leads to tree death within a few years, 3 to 5 years according to the literature. This is really bad. But oaks can compartmentalize affects areas and survive. So this is the hope we have now. Here you can see on the map, first case in Hamburg. Red points, 50 meters, 4 trees. Blue points, 100 meter, 9 trees. Purple points, 250 meters, 39 trees. And green points, 500 meters, around the first tree, 206 trees. After the initial detection, which was discovered by chance by a dedicated tree care professional on private property. So it was not one of our employees, tree inspectors. This time it was one of the companies. So we found directly the second one near in the street in Hamburg. So we were thinking, okay, that's maybe the first one we saw, but not the first one in the city. So this is patient 0 standing isolated in the backyard where no other oaks around him. Also you can see the lesions on the bark. Maybe not so good because of the light. This tree had already been affected for an extended period. Here we see the second diseased tree, an American red oak, Quercus rubra, tree species of the year 2025 in Germany. In autumn 2025 we could only observe dried up lessons. In spring 25 we discovered fresh lessons. Further investigations will take place after an urgent road construction measure. A series of investigations and staff training will follow this year, and we will be carrying out a serious survey of 100 oak trees. The samples are subjected to laboratory analysis, and survey should be completed by October. We need this data because after I saw this, I go to the tree register data and look, how many oaks with lessons are in our tree register? You see a lot. So to find out where oaks with lessons are located, we filter the data with lessons on oaks. In total, lessons were recorded on around 2,200 trees, around 2,500 street trees. The lessons can also have other non-problematic causes. Now we have to look deeper. It can also be seen that there's a spatial pattern which need to be examined closely, so that we have a lot of trees in areas, sometimes near together. As you can see, we still have a lot to do and must now assess the condition of our oaks. And yes, thank you for your attention on the late time.